All right, welcome to another episode of the Fair Chase podcast. Today I have Christian Schaff back again. Just had him on, had a good time with him. And as we've been going through this storytelling phase of the Fair Chase podcast, I figured he'd be a great guy to come on and tell us his hunting story. So to start off, Christian, you want to say who you are, what you do, where you live, a little background about you?
Sure, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. My name's Christian. I live in Park City, Utah, currently. I'm from northern Wisconsin, a small town called Barron, which is also my dog's name here. And I have a business called Uncharted Supply. And, it started with really large scale emergency stuff, survival kits and whatnot. And I think, we still do a lot of that. We've added on a big layer of like prepared adventure. I mean, my perspective is there's a lot of people getting out into nature, either whether for the first time or doubling down on it, like you and I, just doing more and more as this world gets crazier. And, wanting to make sure people can get all the way out there and all the way home. It's kind of what we say. So everything from first aid kits to pack rafts to battery jump starters to survival kits and backpacks. And, we always try to look at the market, find where there's holes, where there's needs, and develop those products. So I think a lot about that. I tell my team I need to test it a lot so I can be in the woods a lot. And and that's kind of what I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you said Utah, Park City, Utah, did you say?
Yes.
Okay.
Park City,
Yeah,
Utah.
beautiful place. Yep. Okay. We keep these podcasts moving. So I got to keep, otherwise I'll ask you questions about Barron, who was lost and is now found for everybody. That was a thing.
That was a whole thing, yeah.
But Christian, so two questions we've been asking people. First, to get to know you, if you had one hunt in a year to do, it could be any hunt anywhere once that year, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty easy one for me. Hunting the elk rut with a bow is just, I don't understand people that like mule deer hunting better. Maybe they're just such good hunters that it's more challenging, but I'm not there yet. And there is nothing, like walking through the woods at 4:30 in the morning to get to your spot and hearing bugles break the silence. And I mean, oh my gosh, I don't know how anything could be more fun than that. So that's I love kind of all aspects, but that one, I mean, if you're like, go do one, that's the one for sure.
What's up? We are going to thank a few of these sponsors that help make this beautiful show a reality for all of you. So Here we go. So a big reason, I would say, to why we're so successful and we have so many bucks on the wall is because we use HuntWise. HuntWise is a GPS mapping app that you can download on any phone, any platform. You can look up public land huntings, ORV trails. You can get the weather. They actually have a HuntCast 2.0 that they teamed up with Jeff Sturgis to make. It's awesome. You need to check this thing out. Go to HuntWise, download the app.
I feel like if you go into the woods without optics, it's like going into the woods without pants on. Would you agree with that?
To a point.
To a point. We are huge fans of running binoculars, spotting scopes, and different things when we hunt, even whitetail. I bring binoculars out every time I go. We choose Vortex Optics because they make the best glass in the business. They have an amazing warranty, super clear glass, super helpful people that work there.
Also, if you want to rep some sweet Vortex swag like this warm shirt on a nice fall day, head over to Vortex Wear. Thank you. And use the promo code TFC20 for 20% off your purchase. Saddle game, you need to be in it. If you haven't been in it yet, then you don't know what you're missing.
Yeah.
Trophy Line Tree Sales makes some of the best saddles in the industry. They have 3 different platforms that we use and that are awesome.
I want to make a quick plug for the Wingman with a couple steps. You can take one less stick, and it's like a combination of a stick and a platform. I've been exclusively hunting out of it this year, and my mobile setup is so sweet. I'm very proud of it.
Awesome.
I highly recommend the Wingman system.
If you're ready to pull the trigger on that and you want to get with James and do the Wingman, head over to the website and you can save yourself 10% on the purchase. TFC 10 will get you that. I like to think I single-handedly got James to switch to compound again, but I'd probably be a liar and everyone would call me out on that. We shoot prime bows. We think they're awesome. Great accuracy, super shootable.
Made here in Michigan.
Made in Michigan, so we love that. It's hard to complain.
That's where Jared was made. So
surprisingly,
we like that. Yeah.
You're welcome. So go check out these prime bows.
We are of a firm belief that The arrow is the lifeblood of the archery industry. We've said it 1,000 times. But in all seriousness, we are huge fans of arrows that are durable, that fly well, and that kind of make up for some of my inaccuracies in the way that I shoot. So we shoot Vector custom arrows.
The hammer.
The hammer.
That's Thor.
They are made in Wisconsin by our buddy Isaac. Great arrows. And if you want to go and get yourself some, have a little bit of a discount, use TFC10 for 10% off. Or call Isaac up and tell him we sent you.
Mm-hmm. You want his phone number? Comment below.
Yep, comment below.
It seems like that is a divide for you Western guys. Like there's like a contingent that like the elk, and some are like mule deer through and through. We've had a lot of guys on that are like, oh, we like elk hunting, but it's mule deer. Strange.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, I've hunted axis a lot lately. That's very similar to elk, but I like them because they're like elk, you know?
Right.
I hope this doesn't offend a bunch of people, but I don't have as much fun sitting in a stand waiting for a whitetail to walk by. Like, I like burning calories and feeling my heart pound and being in the mountains. So that's just me.
Well, you know, most of our listeners are whitetail guys, so I think they turned the podcast off just now, you know, offended. But no, I definitely see that. I like to move. I even for deer hunting, I have a hard time just going and sitting down, which sometimes is great. A lot of times is not great. Okay, so the next is question of the month. The question for this month, it's the month of October when this podcast is going out. What is the most I always say useless piece of gear in your pack right now? So something you bring that you really don't need, that you just for some reason hang on to.
Man, that's a good question. Yeah, I think it changes every day. If you don't kill anything, carrying around a kill kit is the most useless piece of gear, right? If you're bringing a rain kit, it doesn't rain. That's the most useless piece. I honestly, man, I think so much about every gram and how I pack that there's nothing in there that I don't think I'm going to potentially need. I mean, that's the thing.
You're a guy to ask too. Right? Like, given you are all about like survival and having the right things and thinking through it. So I figured, I didn't figure you'd have like, you know, a lot of that extra baggage.
No, I think if push came to shove, I'd probably bring like an extra pair of layers that I don't need. I could just be a little stinkier and just roll with it. But I guess where my head goes is I'm strong enough to carry it. If it cuts down on scent, which usually is the one thing that busts you, like, why not bring extra clothes? So it's probably the one you don't need, but everything else, man, there's a reason you bring it. There's a reason you pack it. So I'm pretty particular about that. I don't know if that's a good answer for you, but that's kind of that's how I operate.
That's acceptable. I mean, that is true. And usually, like, yeah, I mean, I guess you could say extra base layers. You know, a lot of times I'll bring like extra couple, like 2 pairs of undies, which like you can get away with one. It's just not, you smell, but it's also, you got like that sourdough thing going, but it's also like greasy feeling. I just hate that. So I do too,
man. And what if, I mean, you know, you might bring extra socks and maybe you don't need them because it's drier than you think, but there's nothing worse than not having dry socks, right? So
yes,
it's tough. I will tell you, my truck has way more stuff than I need in it. I've got a deck system and then one of those smart caps on my Raptor. And, you know, I've got an espresso maker in there. And I probably don't need this little pump espresso maker that uses those little K-cups, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's tiny. I keep it in there. I definitely don't need it, but it's like, it's pretty cool once in a while.
It's sweet.
There, you know?
Yeah.
I've got a huge thing of like wet wipes, you know, like a huge thing. I don't need all that. And I've got like one of our rapid rafts, and I've got a boat in there. I've got my fishing gear. I've got a shovel. I've got, you know,
but the wipes, you can't have too many wipes. I'm a firm believer you need to be clean in all areas. And so wipes, I don't think you can pack enough of. All right. Christian, we got to jump into your story now. So like I told you before the podcast, this series is focused around hunting stories. So you got an elk this year, you got an elk last year, you live out west. I'm looking at an axis deer behind you and a moose behind you. Like when you think of a great hunt that you've been on, a great story, what comes to mind?
That moose back there. I mean, if you're talking about one story, you know, I was telling the story to the guy I was hunting with, my neighbor, elk hunting, and he's like, dude, that's like as if you dated a supermodel when you were 13. He's like, you're never going to get better than that. You know, he's like, you might as well give up because that's the ultimate. And I mean, he's kind of right. We were on like a 10 or 11 day hunt. And the video, by the way, if you go to YouTube, if you just type in Uncharted Moose, there's two things that'll come up. I'm the one that's not Jim Shockey. So you can watch that one and you can see this whole hunt. It got like 500,000 views. I never told anybody, but I think it's a testament to the story. But you know, we found that moose behind me on day 5, and I had this young 24-year-old guide from New Zealand, and he was like feral almost. Like, he's such a stud. And he just, you know, I mean, just one of the most rugged, durable, fast-moving people I've ever been around. And I love the kid to death. His name's Merlin Frederickson. And we went out to the zone we thought we were going to hunt, and we found a small moose with a couple cows, which kind of, you know, says, hey, he's the dominant moose here. Right. We didn't want to shoot him. So we left that big zone. It was a long way into that area. So we had to climb our way out of this huge valley up over the mountains, got back to camp. And Merlin's like, you can move pretty fast, man. He's like, you know, I've always wanted to look for moose where we stone sheep hunt. And I was like, let's go, you know, let's do it. So we repacked, we kind of got light, and it took us a day and a half to get back to the zone. And we climbed up on this ridge, and I mean, instantly this bull was standing out there, like just destroying a tree. And I mean, I have the video. It looks like satellite dishes on the top of like an ESPN TV truck when he turns. You know, it was just, I had never seen an animal that big, and I was like, this is going to happen. And we got close to him. We never got a shot that day, and then we chased him. It was like over 100 miles, like 125 miles in 4 days, because we had brought horses in, but the horses can only go so far because they had a place that they had to corral the horses. Yeah. And that was about 7 miles from where we would start hunting this moose. So every day we had to do 7 miles there and 7 miles back on this trail, and then start hunting. And what we would do is we'd go ultralight once we got there, and we'd run these ridges because it was so thick where that moose was. We'd run these mountaintops and glass down. Yeah. And I think 3 of the 4 days we found him. And he would just never present himself. We'd never get a shot. And literally the last day, my guide was like, you know, there are other moose around here. You know, it's getting down to the wire. We have to head back this afternoon. And I'm like, it's him or nothing. Like, right. I don't care.
How many days at that point had you dedicated to him, and how many miles?
At that point, I bet we were 75 miles in 3 days, and we'd seen him day 1, day 2, day 3, we did not. And so, you know, my guide, I think, was kind of like, maybe he left that valley, you know, and he was out. And I'm like, hey, if I go home empty handed, I'm okay. But I'm just not giving up. It's not going to feel right shooting something else after putting so much into him. And crested that little drainage the last day and looked in there, and he was close, and we got it done. And I don't, you know, like those adrenaline shakes you get, I shot. It was a pretty long shot, actually. It was a rifle hunt. It was like, you know, several hundred yards, and I was just shaking. And I looked at my guide, and he was shaking. I mean, this is a guy that's been guiding for years. I mean, we were both just looking at each other, couldn't even talk. And you know, it's like the biggest one they'd seen in a few years up there. Seriously. And took us like, you know, 2 days to get him out. And it was just, it was 4 years ago. I still have burger in my freezer, and I eat it a lot. I mean, it's just such a big animal. So
did you call?
Very abridged.
Yeah, no, that's good. No, I get it. Just to rewind, were you calling for him, or were you more just glassing for him and looking for him, or what?
So we had called in other areas.
Yeah.
It had been really warm, and they just weren't moving. And we got up high, and then it got like 15 below. It just snapped, and they just started moving. So I think what happened was we glassed and found him. Is how we found him originally. Yeah. And even that last day, you know, we actually that last day rode 2 horses all the way in that time, because we kept seeing him with different cows, and we were like, well, let's get the brownest horses we have and see if we can pull him out like he thinks they're.
Is that a thing? I've never heard of that.
Well, we had some other little moose come into the horses several times that week. We had one come into camp. We had one come into we weren't there, but a moose came into the horses where they were tied up, and I was just like, guys, let's get creative. Like, what can we do?
Yeah, I love that.
And we kept joking that he was like, you know, the king of the valley and just having his way with all the girls. And I was like, well, does it make sense to ride 2 brown horses in and just I don't know, maybe he'll still,
Yeah.
but I guess if he sees us, we're probably seeing him. So maybe that didn't make sense, but that was the plan. And like right before we went over, I'm like, why don't we just go take a look before we ride in? And we kind of crawled up and peeked over, and he was right there, and we got it done. So that was a special one. A quick addendum to that. I've shot 2 bulls in the last 2 years with a bow by myself in the national forest, and I think something about being alone and having an over-the-counter tag, and one was a small 5x6. This year was like a nice 6x7, not huge, just nice. But gosh dang, I'm so proud of myself for figuring that out and being able to make that happen. So while that was the amazing story, I'm almost more excited about the fact that I think I'm pulling all the skills together to be more consistent, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you take the things you learned from all the hunts, and you can kind of piece them together to create. You just get better and better at whatever you're hunting. But thinking about you with your horses being brown, do you ever see Jeremiah Johnson?
I mean, I know the name. Yeah.
Yeah. So like part of it's like they're hiding behind their horses to shoot an elk. And the guy, I think Dalgu, I think is his name. I could be wrong. He's like, won't they know, Jeremiah Johnson's like, won't they know that there are too many feet behind the horse? He's like, elk don't know how many, feet a horse has or whatever. So it's like exactly what you did. They did in that movie. And it is, by the way, for anybody who has not seen it, and this podcast is not sponsored by the 1970 some movie Jeremiah Johnson, but I would say go watch that. It might be my favorite movie of all time. So,
oh, that's amazing. I'm gonna have to rewatch it. It's been a long, long time. Yeah.
I think the first time I watched it, we watched it for American Lit High School, for school. So apparently we didn't read anymore. That was just a movie time they gave up on us. Okay, so where were you hunting for him again for that moose?
That was on the Yukon border, but we were in British Columbia, so way up north.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So if you're looking back on that hunt, and you're taking like a tip or a lesson learned, because sometimes people will tell stories that maybe they failed. They did the hunt that comes to mind, they didn't get something, and they learned a lesson the hard way. Other times people say, I was there, I was able to get this moose in your case, and the reason was, or what I learned from it was X. Like looking back on that hunt, what was the lesson that you take out of it?
Well, from that one, I mean, gosh, I've learned so much from it since then. I could give you a bunch of things I've learned elk hunting, because I've been able to spend a lot of days doing it. This is my only moose hunt, and I had a guide, right? So a lot of it was just absorbing. But I think with all hunting, I mean, the grind, man. I just, so many times things happen when you've almost given up, like in the 11th hour. And I just think that there's something to be said for, like, I don't care if the elk aren't talking. I don't care if you're not seeing animals. If you just keep covering ground and keep looking, I think your odds are always improving. I think a lot of guys just go, today wasn't the day, I'm going home. But I can tell you, like, most of the animals I've shot in my life was just, it was like almost when I was like, oh, it's not today, and then bam, something happens.
Yeah.
So persistence. I mean, just being in shape, being able to stay out for a long time, getting up early, going to bed late. I've been around people that like to drive their trucks right up to the foot of something, or they cook a bunch of greasy stuff for breakfast. I mean, every little piece matters. Like I've been in the woods when a bunch of animals have run by, and then a half hour later, a side by side goes by. I mean, the animals are so far ahead. It's just, I don't think you can write anything off. But grinding and just trying to be invisible and be out there and cover ground is important.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's great life advice. Just keep hammering,
Yeah, exactly.
So you got some of that moose left. You got a lot of it left, or you kind of?
No, honestly, I've got a couple pieces that I've kind of saved just so if the conversation ever comes up, I'm like, I got like 3 or 4 pieces, but I've got a bunch of axis and oryx and elk and whitetail and all sorts of stuff in the freezer. So I'm pretty.
The axis is supposed to be where it's at, right?
There's nothing like it. It's incredible. Yeah, it's really good. And I think, unfortunately, like with that moose or like a big elk, you're not eating the tastiest of animals, right? These big old bulls don't taste the same. And I think Axe is just, I don't know if they don't grow as old or the ones I haven't, but they are an amazing meat. It's
They
worth trying.
live that cushy life. It's warm,
Yeah.
I
I mean, the ones I shot were in Hawaii. So,
I'd taste better if I lived in
life.
Hawaii, I'd be delicious.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Well, Christian, hey, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, of course.
For people who want to find more about Uncharted, follow some of the things that you've been up to, where can they check you out?
Yeah, Uncharted. I mean, Instagram's probably the most up to date, right? At Uncharted Supply Co. Mine's just at Christian Schaff. Visit our website, unchartedsupplyco.com. You just type in Uncharted or my name, and we spend enough money on ads. Something should pop up.
Yeah, you'll find you.
We're findable, yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, hey, man, thank you for coming on. Good luck the rest of the season. And yeah, we'll look forward to talking to you soon.
Appreciate it, dude. Thank you.
All right, thanks.